Sola Scriptura. You know, I have a lot of friends who are Protestant and who adhere strongly to Sola Scriptura, and they despise tradition, and yet they won't. It's like it's so difficult for them to even grant the fact that the 27 books, at least the 27. I mean, let's not even think about the entire canon for a minute. Let's just think about the 27 in the New Testament, the 27 letters in the New Testament. Um, they are there because a group of bishops came together and decided between a ton of various letters and documents, and they chose 27. And it was promulgated by a pope, and it was taken up in another council, and yet another council. I believe it was 3 councils, and then the Council of Trent formally defined the entire thing, but the other ones were specifically dealing with the New Testament. So what you have is you have tradition giving you the New Testament. Now, all my Protestant friends say, well, God gave us the New Testament. Well, sure, we believe God inspired the Scriptures, and God is the one who ultimately inspired the writers, and the writers wrote it. But the fact is the church played a role in it. The church is a secondary cause. God used the church to distinguish between that which was inspired, theopneustos, and that which wasn't. Okay? And so you're trusting a bunch of people who believe that Mary was ever virgin. You're trusting a bunch of people who believed in the Pope. You're trusting a bunch of people who believed in apostolic succession, purgatory, relics, etc., etc., etc. You're believing them, the trustworthiness of the 27 books. And then you're going to go and you're going to use one of those books to say that tradition is absolutely not necessary whatsoever. Okay? Or that it's just Scripture alone, that's it. Scripture alone falls on its own face. And the other problem is, let's look at it from a pastoral perspective, or even a practical perspective. You have all these rival interpretations. How do you decide between them? Each one thinks they're right in their own eyes. When you have private interpretation and the primacy of conscience, which was Luther at Worms, okay, what we have is absolute theological anarchy. And that's what's happening in Protestantism. And you go back and you sit there and say, well, what could fix that? Well, I'll tell you what could fix it. What could fix it would be returning to the Catholic Church. That would be what would fix it. But Sola Scriptura falls on its own claims. It falls on its own. There is no place where it says, A, Jesus never commanded his apostles to write Scripture. B, the apostles never, at least according to what was written, intended for it to be put together in a single bind and called a Bible. Okay, they never understood it that way. The other thing is, there's no way to say that, well, it was a comprehensive statement of faith, because it was written to specific individuals that had specific problems and specific needs. It dealt with these things individually. It dealt with them regionally too. Okay, so we can take them maybe in principle, but we can't say that it's some comprehensive statement of faith. I think we would be forcing Scripture to say something that it never intended to say. Okay? It wasn't intended to be that way. We needed the supplement of tradition. And the apostles knew this. That's why they referenced tradition in a good way in the New Testament. We're to hold fast to those traditions. Which brings this up. A lot of Protestants will say, well, the traditions that are talked about are stuff that were written elsewhere by either the same apostle or by another apostle. But see, the thing is, they take this out of thin air. There is absolutely no way that they can say, well, I know with certainty or any degree whatsoever of, I can't be confident really to any degree that what I'm claiming is true. How do you know that the traditions that he's talking about are written somewhere else in Scripture? You're presuming that, you're assuming so, but you're assuming so because your presupposition of Sola Scriptura. Okay, so you're starting off Sola Scriptura, and as I said, it's a vicious circle. And they have to sit there and look at those passages that say, I could write this out in pen and ink, or in ink and paper, but I want to say it to your face. I want to talk to you face to face about these important matters. There's more than one reference to that. And yet they have to somehow sit there and say, oh, well, someone else must have put it in ink and paper. There's no argument for it. It falls on its face. On its own claims cause it to fall on its face.